Hey, welcome back to the Motorcyclist Podcast. This is where we talk about motorcycles and what makes them great. Topics on the show always change, but the one thing that always remains is two-wheeled fun. On this episode, we are going to talk about Harley-Davidson's Pan America 1250. That's a Harley-Davidson adventure bike. But before we do that, we've got to make introductions. We got Adam Wahid. He's the only healthy one on this podcast at the moment. We got Jeff Allen. He's got 11 broken ribs and some small holes in his lungs. And you got me, executive editor Justin Dawes, and I'm getting over COVID. So we are going to sound maybe a little bit off today, but we're going to give it our best go. So as we said, we're going to talk about Harley-Davidson Pan America 1250. This is Harley-Davidson's, well, we'll call it first with quotations around first adventure bike. I guess the Buell Ulysses could be counted as Harley-Davidson's first adventure bike. And we'll say early Harley-Davidsons probably all were adventure bikes, depending on, where you rode them, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So, but this is...
Those old hill climbers were adventure bikes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man.
With the chains on the wheels.
The statue in front of the Harley-Davidson Museum with the hill climber is one of the raddest statues I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that old stuff was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a since we don't have if you're listening, we have to describe it for you. It's a hill climber. He's going up a hill. He's got a chain on the rear tire. It's an old, 20s Harley and 30s Harley, and he's like hanging off the bike. He's on the edge of control. It's a really cool statue. If you ever get to the museum, you won't ever forget it for sure.
You can't miss it.
Can't miss it. It's beautiful. So, this first adventure bike comes in 3 variants. The special, which is we'll say the normal adventure motorcycle, an ST, which is street focused, and a CVO touring model. And this is the first model to use Harley-Davidson's new Revolution Max 1250 engine. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But let's get into the details of the Pan America. So I say, and I think probably both of you agree with me, that this is very much a real adventure motorcycle. This isn't some half-baked attempt to take something Harley-Davidson already had and turn it into an adventure motorcycle. It's not like a Sportster with some long suspension on it or something like that.
No,
do you guys agree?
Not. Yeah, definitely not.
No, it's real adventure bike.
Yeah, the whole thing was ground up.
Yeah, ground up build, which we'll talk about here. It does have some Harley-Davidson styling. It is polarizing in its look, to say
I like
least.
It.
Yeah,
I like that it looks like a Harley, and I like that it doesn't look like other adventure bikes.
Yeah, I think that's neat too. I agree.
Yeah. I would say that it looks much better in person than it does on a page, on a screen. When you get around it, the proportions make sense, but sometimes in photos, it's hard to find a good angle on the bike.
Well, plus we had gotten used to what adventure bikes look like.
Yeah.
This comes along and,
pointy, and that kind of thing. And this is it's got that big, long, wide, or I should say wide headlight that's kind of squished down. It's
sort of like a smaller version of a Road Glide,
Yeah, very much like, so it's got all the tech that you would expect out of an adventure bike. You've got lean sensitive traction control and ABS. You've got drag torque control, which is like using the throttle and the ignition to act as a slipper clutch when the slipper clutch doesn't work anymore because the roads are so slick or the gravel's so slick or whatever. So it keeps the rear end from locking up. It's got wheelie control. It's got combined braking. And it was the first to have adaptive ride height. It was the first bike to lower itself when you stopped, which to me still like boggles my mind that someone hadn't thought of it first. And
they were the first. Yeah. In the adventure category, they were like the innovators. Yeah. That's
like, it just blows me out. It's like, duh. Like, all these bikes have such tall seat heights as adventure bikes because you need the ground clearance, you need the suspension, and this makes it, easier to get it on and off of.
Yeah, and theirs isn't just when you stop, right? It's when you get under a certain mile per hour.
Under a certain speed, it'll come down. Yeah, and you can lock it out. You can change the parameters a little bit to how it activates.
Well, I'm just saying, like if you were in something, tricky, you lowers the seat height so you can touch. Like if, say, for instance, you're in sand and you need to dab, you're probably going slow enough that it's settled down. The seat is settled down.
Yeah, very
Makes
much
it
so.
more doable.
And you don't notice it when it does it either. That's the interesting part, is you really don't feel the change in the bike's attitude at all, which is pretty cool. So, and then once you get going again, once you crest a certain speed, I can't remember what it is, 25, 30 miles an hour or something like that, it raises back up automatically.
Yeah.
So really cool thing. So it runs kind of adventure, normal wheel sizes, 1917 on the special and the CVO, and then 17-inch wheels on the ST, which is the street focused one that just, they just added to the lineup. So I don't know, it's very much a real adventure motorcycle. I think it's got everything that you would want, minus maybe adaptive cruise control and all the radar stuff, but I'm assuming that the next iteration of the bike will have all that stuff as well.
And plus it has all the available accessories you would want for your adventure bike. Soft cases, hard cases, skid plate, hand guards, all that stuff. It's got everything.
High seat, low seat, all that stuff. So
I guess now they have a single, a one-piece seat option. So.
Yep.
That'd be cool.
All around, it's a very, very much a adventure motorcycle, and it's got an all-new engine in it, which is the Revolution Max 1250. They also have Revolution Max 975 in the Nightster. So the 1250 is used in the Pan America and in the Sportster. But the little bit different tune in both the bikes. In the Pan America, it makes 150 horsepower at 95 pound-feet of torque. Those are claim numbers from Harley-Davidson. It's a dual overhead liquid-cooled 4-valve 60-degree V-twin with VVT on both the intake and exhaust cams, which is pretty cool as well. I think the Sportster only gets it on the intake, if I remember right, or maybe that's the Nightster. Maybe the 975 only has it on.
Yeah,
it's got one of the street bikes.
The motor's got all of the features you would expect on a premium adventure bike.
It really does, and it's got some stuff that other ones don't. It's got a hydraulic valve lash adjustment, just like on all their big twins and stuff. So there's no valve clearance checks. It's always got the correct clearance. So. Overall, I really, really like that engine. What about you, Heath? Do you like that engine?
Yeah, it's okay for sure. It's nice. It's got, revs kind of fast and has that signature Harley-Davidson, character and exhaust note, which is neat, but, in a more modern liquid-cooled, power plant, which is cool. I think Harley-Davidson did an okay job of, appeasing the Harley-Davidson purists, but finally giving the modern motorcycle rider, some contemporary performance.
Yeah, I would say, down low, it definitely has the Harley-ish feel to it, or sound. And then when you rev it out, it feels very European to me. It feels like a KTM LC4, or LC8, I should say. It just feels really, really sporty, and it revs and it feels modern. It feels wholly modern when you're on the gas.
Yeah, good on Harley Davidson for having the huevos to make the investment for this thing. That was a big, I guess you would say, gamble, but that they sort of had to make. But good on them for doing such a good job.
Yeah, they definitely had to modernize Harley's offerings a bit, so Sportster, Pan America, Nightster, all those things add to that. Definitely not for the traditional Harley owner, except that they are, because it was a very successful launch of that bike. It was actually the best-selling adventure motorcycle for a few months when it first came out, which is saying a lot, because BMW's GS is a sales machine. Like BMW doesn't even have to have a full lineup. If they just had the GS, they would still do better than some other manufacturers.
Yeah,
So did really, really well. And people, people moved from they had conquest sales. They had people that bought from outside of Harley Davidson, but then they also had the Harley Davidson faithful buying the bikes too, that were like, oh man, I own a GS along with my Road Glide. Now I can have a Road Glide and I can have a Pan American. So it makes a lot of sense for Harley Davidson do it, because they realize that there are a lot of owners that own multiple bikes, and if they have a Harley, they may buy a Harley in other segments.
Yeah, and probably looking to bring in a even just slightly younger buyer.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, or something a little more sporty, a little more utilitarian.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about riding impressions and whether we like it or not. Let's start off with Adam. Let's hear your feelings on the Pan America.
Yeah, I think it's okay for a Harley Davidson adventure bike. It's not my favorite adventure bike, but for Harley Davidson's first shot at it, it's an okay offering.
Okay.
About you, Jeff?
I guess I have a little bit stronger feelings than Wahid. I'm like, what's not to like? I think it's a really nice adventure bike. I mean, and adventure bikes they can be so different, right? You have touring adventure, you have like serious off-road adventure, but I think this thing, I think it does both fairly well. To me, it's as if a BMW, like you're comparing it to BMW. So it's as if the BMW and the KTM, got together and had a baby. In some ways, it reminds me of the KTM. In some ways, it reminds me of the BMW, which I don't know this, but I would think that would be a target for Harley.
Yeah, I mean that's the hard part for Harley, is like, where do they position this and what do they target? So
yeah,
I think
I appreciate the rider aids that it has. Like I said, I like the styling. As far as the riding it, I like it in the sitting position, standing position. It's fairly narrow, and I wear knee braces when I ride adventure bikes, because there's always off-road options, and some bikes you really notice the width with the knee braces, and less so, I think, on the Pan America.
Yeah, I agree. It's actually a very slim feeling bike because of that kind of traditional shaped tank, right? Instead of this big boxy thing that a lot of adventure bikes
all
have,
covered in plastic. Yeah,
yeah, and so that right there makes it feel slim. And I do the same thing. I wear knee braces most of the time when I'm riding an adventure motorcycle, and it definitely, that helps a lot. It's got good ergonomics. It's got some options where you can get risers for the handlebars and a few other things. And so, but overall, it's very good the way it is. And I really like, it's easy to toss around. Like it's a big motorcycle. It's a big bore ADV, but the handlebar width and shape and the slimness of the tank really allows you to like throw your knee into the tank and really move the bike around really easily. And sometimes it feels a little bit lighter than it is. And it doesn't feel as massive as some of the other bikes, like a GS. Well, when it came out, it was against the GS 1250, and it felt a lot smaller than a GS 1250. The engine, I think, is really, really nice. It puts power to the ground really well, and that lets it slide around power line roads and gravel roads. Like you can really slide the bike really nice. It has a really nice balance at being able to really control that rear tire. So overall, I think it was a really good first effort, and it was one of my favorite bikes when it came out in 2021. Everyone's kind of moved on since 2021. So, the GS 1300 or R1300 GS, Multistrada, Tiger, and even the KTM have all got updates since that and have upped the game a little bit. So I think it's time for Harley Davidson to respond and bring the level up a little bit more on their bike. I think, the semi-active suspension on it is pretty nice. but I do think it maybe needs a little more suspension travel. It's got 7.5 inches on both ends. And since you have that adaptive ride height, why not just make it longer travel? Because you can lower the bike anyways. Instead of lowering the bike 1.5 inches or whatever it is, let the bike lower 2.5 inches or something, and give us that extra travel and ground clearance when we need it as an adventure bike. And then it can still lower itself down when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Agreed.
Overall, I think it's a great ADV bike. And if you're shopping for ADV bikes, you should absolutely go check one out. I think it is very much an alternative to all the other big adventure motorcycles that we talk about here.
Yeah, a certain uniqueness in it being that it's such a new motorcycle, but it also has a huge dealer network.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. It does have a huge dealer network, and I will say, like, the first couple of years, they did have to work out a few kinks, right? They had some charging and battery issues, which with 2024 on is supposedly solved. A lot of people just put lithium batteries in their bike and it helped. The problem with like low battery voltage after it sat for a while, so like parasitic draw from all the electronics, made it like hard starting or screwed up the display. There's a few problems. So, but as of now, it seems all those are sorted, and so that's nice. So, but yeah, overall, I think it's a great bike for what it is. 20 grand for the special. They don't really have the base model anymore. So starts at 20 grand, but obviously it goes up from there if you change the wheels and
which is not cheap.
No, it's not cheap.
Not cheap.
But it's not out of hand in the big adventure bike segment, I think, right?
If I remember when it came out, it also there was priced below the BMW and just slightly above the KTM. It was like
it was kind of in the middle there, yeah. So obviously inflation is driven up prices a little bit,
unaffected by tariffs.
yeah. Well, I'm sure not all the parts on that thing are American made, but I know they do use a lot of suppliers nearby Milwaukee. So anyway, I have a funny story about this bike, in that we actually had an effect before the bike came out on the design of this motorcycle. So,
go on.
So in 2018, they teased this bike. They put out this video and it showed it in the prototype testing, and so I went frame by frame for the video and like basically pointed out, okay, the engine looks like it's this many degrees, and it looks like this, and it looks like it's got this suspension, this type of wheel, this blah blah blah, and I just went through and kind of like made my predictions on what the Pan America will be, and I wrote in my article that it looks heavy, and that if it came in my article, I wrote, if this thing weighs less than 550 pounds, I will buy all of the Harley-Davidson engineering and design staff pizza and beer. And so then we come around to 2021. It's the press launch. They have their PowerPoint presentation going, and the screen comes up and it says dry weight this is for the base model, not the special, but there was a base model at that time. And it said 535 pounds. Dawes, you owe us pizza and beer.
Right in the presentation, right? In the Harley presentation.
Yeah. In the presentation for the press launch. And so I was like, oh, geez. So we stuck to it. And we bought pizza and beer for like 400 people in Milwaukee and had a pizza party. I stuck to my challenge, and we paid up. It cost us like 15 grand for pizza and beer, but
did you get to throw that on the expense account?
We threw it on the expense account. It did not come out of my own pocket, but I was dissuaded from making challenges like that in the future.
We got you this time, but not next time.
Yeah. We'll cover this one, but not next time. So, but it was cool. Like they took that article and printed it out. The lead of the project printed it out for every engineer and went to everyone's desk and put it on their desk and they all pinned it up in their cubicle, and every one of them worked on removing weight from whatever they were working on in order to get it less than 550.
That's cool.
Because before it was going to be more. So it was cool. We had an effect on the bike.
That's media doing its job.
Yeah.
Helping to improve the product. Yeah.
We improved the product before it even came out. So that was a pretty fun story. And then we printed out like a little like magazine with all our articles about the bike. And yeah, it was really fun. It was good to meet all the people that did it. And they were all like, yeah, thanks for doing that. Like one guy was telling me about like the gear on the back of the clutch basket for the starter. Like it was a solid piece of aluminum. And then he went through and like removed all this weight and made it look like what do you call it? Like grandma's doily for, teapot. Like, he removed all this material and everyone did that.
Holes in it?
Yep. Added more.
Their old Cycle World editor, dirt bike editor, Ron Gray, used to say he put holes in everything back in the day. He would always say there's nothing lighter than a hole.
This is true. Yeah. Add more lightness in the way of Lotus. So anyway, I think that's a fun story. So having us all ridden the bike and we all seem to like it in some form, what would you like to see from Harley-Davidson to make this bike better? Because obviously it's time for it. Let's give them a challenge again. We're not going to buy them pizza and beer, but let's give them a challenge to improve this bike, and maybe they'll listen to us. So Jeff, what do you want to see out of the?
Well, I could see them expanding the lineup like they do with, all of their other models, different options, different, accessories. Like for instance, a version with an 1821. So you could have, additional tire choices.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be neat.
That sort of thing. Maybe even like a real, I don't know if stripped down is the right word, but a stripped down version that's very off-road,
Mm-hmm.
and even like KTM, maybe even a version with the smaller motor with the Max 975, sort of a mid, if you could say that, a mid-size adventure bike.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that would be the thing with the 975 and an 1821. Sort of
that'd be cool. A lighter bike,
adventure bike, yeah.
Yep, that's a really cool idea. Adam, what about you?
Yeah, I think what Jeff just said is a great idea. Maybe a slim down. I mean, it's going to be a Harley Davidson, so it's never going to be like Teneri slim, but just a slim down
970 with another pizza party.
I think a slim down 975, middleweight plus size adventure bike would be cool. That'd be a cool variation. Something with it's going to be hard to do the 21-inch, 18-inch wheel combo with that chassis configuration, I'm sure, but that would be cool. I know they're making that ST, the 17-inch variation, which is cool. Even like a more like not hardcore sport, like road sport, but yeah, like almost an adventure sport, like real precisely made adventure sport. That would be a cool variation, kind of like they could go as wild as having, Ducati Pikes Peak, just super high end, like just road sport to the max. Okay. Like, honestly, that would be a good little niche for Harley Davidson to own that, especially with like their competition, street legal competition baggers. Like they have that technology, they have those components. Obviously it's in touring configuration, but it'd be cool to kind of narrow in on that segment, and in theory they could potentially own that segment.
Yeah, I mean they race the hooligan class with the Pan America, right? So excuse me. So
there's a flat track adventure flat track.
That too, but like I really like Heath's idea of like an ST, we'll call it an STR. Right.
Yeah, STR. Yep.
Perfect.
Yep,
STR. And it's just done to the max, and it's a special model that is more expensive and has a high margin for Harley, but really ups that thing to where you would buy one and go take it to a track day and not have to change anything. I think that'd be really fun. And then of course go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, they could do it boutique style, like they do with their that Harley Davidson RR $100,000 bagger. Like they could just make a limited run of those really high end bikes, lots of carbon fiber, some titanium things here and there, and huge margins, limited edition, stamp the tank. Yeah, that would be cool.
It'd be super sick. I think that would be killer. But I'd also like to see a off-road R model like Jeff's talking about, and your lighter 21 and 18, longer travel. It may not be what Harley people are looking for, but people outside of Harley may step into the brand for something like that. I think a 975 engine would be suitable. You don't need a ton of power for something that's more off-road focused. Like 100 horsepower is plenty for an off-road, like for super off-roady adventure motorcycle. And you just make it longer travel and slim it up a little bit more. And I think it'd be killer.
You might catch the eye of a KTM buyer.
You really could, you really might. So I think we're all kind of aligned.
Especially if they lean into like the American manufacturing, like sometimes they lean into that, sometimes they don't. But if they, could make a bigger point of that, especially in today's, American-centric society or more American-centric society, that would be cool.
Yeah, very much so. So, I think we're all kind of aligned on what we'd like to see. So, Harley, if you're listening, do it. We may buy you pizza. Depends. You make an STR. All right, maybe we'll buy you pizza. If you make an off-road RR, I'll bust out the credit card. Anything else you guys want to add on the Pan America before we wrap this thing up?
Honestly, you guys got me excited. Just those two variations, that would be really cool.
It would be cool.
Yeah, I'm happy to see them break out of the mold and and do something and have it work out well for them.
Yeah.
They've tried some stuff. Some of it seems. Sometimes it has seemed sort of not fully on board, I guess is what I'm not fully committed.
Fully realized, yeah. I think this bike though, I think it really does show that Harley-Davidson proved they can build other things besides chromed out cruisers and big baggers. It's a huge company with a huge engineering know-how, and it can do what it wants. But it also likes to stick to what's safe sometimes. And I think the stepping out to the adventure bike was not a fully safe move for them. But it gave them the ability to show off their technical know-how and their engineering prowess. And they did it. I mean, it was picked by, some of us as the best adventure bike for 2021 because it did trounce a lot of the current machines on the market. So, while it's still a Harley, it's a real ADV. It's competitive in the class, but it's probably time for a refresh, which I'm sure we'll see soon. And then I think the last thing I'll say about it is don't knock it until you try it, because it's actually really, really good.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's going to be it for us. Yep, that's going to be it for us. We're big fans of the Pan America. Thanks for listening. We appreciate the support. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. And put your comments down below. Let us know what you think about the Pan America. If you think it's a real adventure bike, and what would you like to see Harley change for the next update for that motorcycle. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.